So today I'm joined by Abby Thomas, who is a drone pilot, cinematographer, camera op,
Yep, all of the above. Yeah.
former happy hour employee
Yes, yeah.
for a very, 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 very short period of time, which I think was about, we've worked out maybe 7 years ago.
I think it's 7 years ago.
7 years
Time
ago.
is just like
Yeah.
an illusion to me. It just goes. So I think so. We'll say 7
Yeah.
years.
And were you a production assistant? when you were
Production
here?
assistant, yeah. So
Yeah.
I was very new to the industry. It was like very, very start of my career. I think it was
Yeah.
my second job in the industry.
Okay.
My first one was working on Dinner Date as a
Right.
sound logger. And then I moved to Bristol and this was my first Bristol job. So it was, production assistant, just helping around in the office, helping on a couple of shoots, just
Yeah.
doing whatever you wanted me to do.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And that was that. I mean, it's just after I started, I think about 8 years ago. So very much remember you being around. Felt longer than 3 months, in a good way.
Yeah.
But immediately after that, I think we were just talking off camera, but that you went to Crystal Maze.
That was it, yeah. So I was kind of toying whether to stay here with you guys or to go onto Crystal Maze. I was offered this job. I think I was working as a runner, a floor runner there. And they were like, you could be very heavily involved with obviously getting involved with all the games and maybe some camera work. Because I knew from the get-go I wanted to kind of lean into maybe cameras.
Right.
And they were like, it'd be good to have you on the floor and you could see how it's filmed. So that was like the selling point for me from them.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So then I left here, went to Crystal Maze for a couple of months and worked for them. How long was the filming period? Maybe like a month or so. And then from there, I kind of hopped between different companies. So I just ended up doing lots of game shows. So I did Crystal Maze. I did that twice. Did Tipping Point. Did Have I Got News for You? The Bake Off. All the Bake Offs. There's so many of those. So I ended up just doing a lot of those for a long time.
Yeah.
Which was
So
great.
you bounce about a bit.
Yeah, because they're quite short contracts, aren't they?
Yeah.
So like Crystal Maze was a month. Bake Off main series is about 10 weeks. And then Tipping Point, I think, was like another month. So I was kind of chopping and changing between all of those for a long time, bouncing around different companies.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm super, super keen to get into like your progression, like when you left us, and where you are now. Because I think, like, for 2 reasons. I think like you're working in natural history, which like is super cool anyway, and really interesting to talk about. But also, I thought that this would be a really good resource for other younger people coming through the industry to show them how somebody like yourself has done it.
Yeah.
And got to where you've got to. So I think probably best to start at the beginning.
Oh, God,
Or-
yeah.
or close
Back
to
to
the
my
beginning.
childhood.
Yeah, not right at the beginning.
It probably does start there, you know. I was
Yeah,
talking to
sure.
my friend the other day, and we were just talking about cartoons that we watched when we were kids. Did you ever watch The Wild Thornberrys?
I didn't.
Okay, do you know what it is? Like the whole premise of it?
No. I think so. Yeah.
So it's basically, the main point of the show is this like young girl who can like talk to animals, and she travels around in this camper van with her parents, and her dad is a wildlife presenter and her mum's a wildlife camerawoman who films it all. I remember thinking when I was a kid, I was like, that's awesome, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it only dawned on me the other day, I was like, maybe that's why I got into this, because I like idolized that mum in that cartoon. So it probably does go back
very,
that far.
very possibly. I mean, that's absolutely where, you know, like as young kids, you know, I know I got into a community play when I was like 15. It was like, bam, okay,
Yeah.
I know that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
Like, and
exactly.
I didn't before that
Yeah.
moment. But so, like, as a kid, were you creative?
Very,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So I have an older sister and she was very much the kind of academic kid. She was very good at school, always reading and like just that kind of brain.
Yeah.
I was the opposite. I was always just doing things with my hands, like crafts, painting, drawing, just always wanted to create things.
Yeah.
So from a young age, I think my parents were like, yeah, she's definitely going to go into some sort of like arts of some way.
Photography was the first real medium that you kind of took seriously?
I think so, yeah. I mean, this was back when I was doing my GCSEs, so you're then starting to think about like your career and where you're going to go. And, you know, your parents have that serious talk of like, what are you actually going to do with your life? And you're
Yeah.
like, oh God.
Oh God, I never had that one.
Yeah. But so I started to pick up a camera then and absolutely loved it. And I was like, okay, this is a job that could be had here. And so I did photography for GCSE and then I carried it on to A-level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, yeah, I seriously want to do this as a job, and started to kind of market myself in a way. So I was getting like a portfolio together and talking to people about, could I do like headshots for them or like maybe get into like wedding photography. And so that was, when it kind of, I was really thinking about it as a career. And then I was still toying between, because I still drew quite a lot. I was really into animation, and I was drawing all the time. And I was like, do I want to go into 2D animation instead? So I knew I was going to go into some sort of creative job, but it was just, when you're that young, you don't really know.
Yeah, of course.
You can't like pin your entire life on like one route, can you? So I was like, do I want to do animation or do I want to do photography? And I found this degree. So I did my A-levels. I was like coming towards the end. And I was like, do I want to do a degree in like photography or do I want to go down the animation route? And I found this course called Media Arts at Plymouth University. And it was a really broad spectrum course. So you go in, you do photography, film, sound design, animation, multimedia, app design, all sorts. And I was like, that sounds like a really good idea, because I have a few ideas of what I want to do, but I'm not set in stone. So I was like, if I go and do this really broad course, I can try them all out, see what I like, and then you specialize in one at the end.
Yep.
So that was then my stepping stone into filming. So I went there, you make your own films and whatnot, and absolutely loved that. I thought it was brilliant.
Did the course prepare you for the industry, or was it more it allowed me to experiment and find out some things about myself, or like?
Definitely that, yeah, the latter. So like it was a very like creative experimental course. You can kind of go in, do anything, and it wasn't like teaching you how to do things. It was kind of giving you the tools and being like, be creative, and this is your brief, go and make it. So you can go and kind of teach yourself in a way. The only downside was I didn't feel super prepared for the industry.
Sure.
Like when I finished my degree, I did really well. I made some great projects and obviously met some amazing people. But when I went into the industry, it was a very steep learning curve.
Yeah.
I think it's for most people, you know, because there's lots of different job roles that I didn't know existed, and like I didn't know what I was meant to be applying for. Because I think when I left Plymouth, I was applying for like producer jobs, and like, they're obviously not gonna hire me as a producer or like a cinematographer.
Writer, director, producer.
Because you just, when you come out of uni, you're applying for anything. I was like, I'll take any job just to kind of get my foot in the door. So I was applying for all sorts of stuff, like camera operator, cinematographer, producer, showrunner, like anything. So many times people were like, probably not for you. I was like, okay. So it took a long time to learn that as well. I think there's some really good websites now that will break down like the different positions, different roles that people have, and the kind of, I don't want to say ranking of it, because that doesn't sound great, but like at what experience you can get these jobs in, kind of, does that make sense? So I wasn't super prepared for the industry when I stepped out of uni.
I think it's tricksy, isn't it? Because like I found the same thing, and it's like unless you work, I think we as a company we've been discussing like taking on like graduates and or people that are just coming into their final years, things like that, just to give them an idea of what it actually is like. Because there is nothing like doing it to experience it. And I have rarely spoke to anybody that's come out and said, oh yeah, my course was brilliant at preparing me for the industry, because they taught us about this and this and what we should do when we approach companies, and what it's going to be like to work. You're going to be literally making tea. For the first part, like. So yeah, I think it's like there's a massive gap.
Yeah, I think that's why work experience is so important. Yeah. Like people do ask me, like, what should I do getting into the industry? I'm like, even though sometimes you're working for either barely any money or no money at all, you're kind of doing it for free, at least you get a really good idea of the industry and where you want to go. Because that was a real eye opener. I'm like, okay, there's so many people on a team, because at uni there's like 3 of you. And then when you go into like maybe work on like a drama set or something like that, there's hundreds of people, and you're like, what are they all doing? So that's
sometimes
really,
the producer doesn't even know.
Exactly. No one does.
For somebody that's just come out of university, how should they approaching companies, or like do they need to start making their own work? Do they doing classes, or like you say, work experience, or like what's important, do you think?
I mean, all of the above is important, really, having like a good mix of that. I mean, if you have, especially if you want to go into camera work, because like you can come out of uni and go, I'm amazing at camera, but if you haven't got anything to show, no one's going to believe you. So if you've made your own project, or whatever it is you want to do, and go to a company and say, look, I'd love to grab a coffee and just introduce myself and maybe show you what I've been doing. And then show people, and they might go, yeah, you're amazing at camera, might consider you for something. So having a piece to show and then networking, I think is really, really important.
How do you
Even
network?
once I finished at Plymouth, I went to London for a little bit doing work experience. And then London didn't really work out for me. I'm just not a London person. It was great.
And so many people on these podcasts have said exactly the same thing.
I'm not a London person. I love it as like a tourist, but like I
Yeah.
couldn't live there. And off the back of that work experience, I got my first job. So I was just doing, like shadowing people during my work experience phase. And they were like, do you want to stay and do some logging work? And I was like, absolutely. So work experience is really important because it got me my first job, and I could like put it on my CV and be like, yes, got it. And then once that came to the end, I came to Bristol. And it was kind of like starting fresh again because I didn't know what production companies were here. I didn't know anyone in Bristol at all. So I made a massive list, and I just sat there Googling like different production companies. So I just made like a massive list and then went through their websites and tried to find like their talent manager or any sort of email that I could. Or even better, if you can find producers and just be like, oh, hey, I do this. I'd love to meet for a chat. Or just send them CVs or whatever, show reels. So I did that when I first moved to Bristol. I think that's how I got the job here. I think I just sent out a random email.
Right.
And I was like, oh, hey, this is like me. I'm like, this is my CVs. I'm new to the industry. And then I think was it Nick? Someone invited me in for a chat, and they were like, yeah, actually, you fit the bill of what we're looking for.
Yeah.
It sounds really weird to do, just like email people and like ask them for a coffee or something. But in this industry, that's kind of normal.
Was Offspring the first natural history
Yeah,
place?
so Offspring was my big natural history production. In between that, though, I did Country File. So
Right,
Country File
okay.
was my kind of stepping stone.
How did that happen?
So for a long time, I was doing entertainment and dramas as well. So I was bouncing between those two. And I'd applied for like BBC jobs for a really long time in natural history because I also love wildlife, like completely outside of work. I grew up in the Forest of Dean. I love being out in nature and just, that kind of... Those are the kind of shows I'd always watch. I knew I was like, I want to go into that. But I'd applied for jobs at the BBC and I just kept getting knocked back, and they were like, you don't have a biology degree, you're not going to,
Right.
it just wasn't happening.
Interesting.
So I was like, okay, I'll happily stay in like entertainment and dramas for a long time. And I think this is when drones became a thing, It was like, drones like became massive. It was like 2013 when they were properly introduced like commercially. I remember seeing those come out and I was like, those are wicked. I was like, they're like flying toy cars. I was like, this is brilliant. And so I'd saved up and managed to buy a secondhand one. And I was like, this is another way of like filming. It's like a new medium and I think it's going to be really popular. And so I just had my own, it wasn't a very fancy drone. It was like the original Mavic, which is like super old now. So I had that and I was like, I wonder if this could be like a career I go down as well. And then a job came up on Country File. Back then it was called a technical assistant. It's now changed name to camera assistant.
Okay.
And I applied for it. I'd been knocked back so many times. I was like, this is not going to come of anything. I really don't think so. But I applied anyway because I applied to everything they put out. And they saw that because I must have put into my CV that I had a drone or like would like to go into drone work.
Yeah.
And they kind of picked up on that. And then I got an interview. I was like, amazing. This never happens. Went to the interview and they were like, okay, we're really keen that you're interested in drones because that's a big part of the role and it is such like a new thing. I think before they were hiring freelance drone operators, which for them, I don't think it worked out so well because it's either really expensive or I don't know. I think for them it was more beneficial to have someone in-house to do that position and someone who can also cross-shoot and do any other bits really, like technical bits. So that was kind of like my USP to them. They were like, this is brilliant. Because I was like, I really want to do my drone license and properly do this for work. And they were like, don't worry about it. We'll pay for your license.
Oh, right.
And that's how I got the job. Having something unique about yourself, some sort of skill, will always benefit you. And I think for me, again, it was right time, right place kind of thing. But also, I was super keen on drones. And that's exactly what they were looking for.
Had you been training on camera prior to that?
I'd kind of picked up a camera if people needed me to do stuff or someone would put it on a tripod and I'd kind of fiddle with it. I was just keen to see and learn. And sometimes people would let me film, but not huge amounts. I wasn't there like...
No. So you were pretty fresh.
I was really fresh still, but I was very keen.
I'm slightly gobsmacked at how that... Like you say, it's right place, right time, right?
Yeah. I think, right place, right time, had the right kind of kit that they wanted. Not that they ever used my drone, but they knew that I had a good understanding of it.
Yeah.
And then got the job on Country File and I worked for them probably about a year, just shy of a year and a half. And that was like proper training ground then because they trained me on like different cameras and I was out flying and filming pretty much every single week. So it was kind of like a fast track into camera work.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Which was great. It's actually a really, really good show to get onto.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my stepping stone into natural history. Because like I said before, I really wanted to get into natural history, but it was so hard to get into.
Yeah, really
and
tough.
I did actually end up having an interview for a BBC production, but I didn't have the skills on those kind of cameras. So like on Country File, it was like Sony FS7s and like smaller cameras.
Yeah.
Because they're more run and gun. Whereas on natural history shows, they use like big cinema cameras, like Reds and Phantom cameras. And I hadn't been trained on those because they're very expensive. Why would I ever have access to those kind of cameras? So that was kind of my barrier getting into the NHU. But then Country File, I think they just kind of took a bit of a punt on me. And I knew quite a bit about cameras just from like my degree, just having the interest, and then being on Country File. And they mainly needed someone to look after a kit room to start with.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I can definitely do that.
What was your role? What was your role? What was the title?
At Offspring, I think I was called a kit coordinator.
Right, okay.
So yeah, I saw this job come up and I was like, okay, it wouldn't be out filming, but at least I'd learn those cameras, those big cinema cameras. That's an opportunity to learn something new. And, you know, that's just how I get in there. So I applied for it and got an interview, and we just got on really well. And I mentioned like I have a very basic understanding of these cameras, but I would really, really love to learn them. And then, they hired me for that job. And then I went to Films at 59, do you know?
Yeah.
So where they keep all like the big cinema cameras, and did some training up there and just constantly up in the kit room, like tinkering with things. I'm very much like a hands-on learner.
Yeah.
So I was just always playing around with things, watching like YouTube videos. And then, I was there for about just shy of 2 years learning. And again, very steep learning curve again. There's like a lot. There's so much to learn in that industry. So that was my big natural history production. I was like, I'm in.
That's cool. And what that says to me is you were pretty adept at finding the way in. So you know, it wasn't to see like kit manager or like to understand that actually that's not, I'm not going in as a camera op, or I'm not going in as, there's something I can learn from here, so I'm going to say yes to this. That's quite an important quality to have, I think.
Yeah, and I personally like to feel really comfortable with something before I like jump the gun. I'd rather climb the ladder. I don't know whether that's just like a personal preference, but I'd rather climb into a position, really understand it before I climb onto the next one. Right. So I don't want to jump the gun.
Rather than fake it till you make it.
Yeah, because like it's the worst thing that when you go onto a job being like, yeah, I could do this, and then you're like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I'd hate that. Like there's an element of that, like really like bigging yourself up and being like, yeah, I can definitely do that, and you do like a bit of research. But for me, I really like to be comfortable before I like jump the gun. Like if I went out and was like, yeah, I'm a cinematographer, I can film with all these like big cameras, and you get out there and you've completely lied. You're the fool, really. So and it was just like a new challenge. It was something really fun. Like I really did want to learn these cinema cameras. They're just absolutely epic. I was like, this is the opportunity to do that, which would hopefully lead in the future to going out filming with them in the field. And it did, because when I was at Offspring, they sent me out on a couple of shoots just to help out, and then ended up doing a bit of filming as well.
Amazing.
So which is great.
Were they kind of like they were open to you picking up a camera on those smaller shoots? It was like was it more of a, here you go, have a go, or was it right, this is what we want you to shoot?
Yeah. To start with, it was that, like, here you go, like, have a little go with this. Obviously, they've got their main operators.
Yeah.
And if, like, they were having a break, or if they had, like, a spare camera sitting around, they would, like, go and try and either get some time lapses or try cross shoot some wildlife, which was great. And then as time went on, they also picked up on the fact that I did a lot of drone work. And I think people really liked that. I think that was kind of a niche that I was, like, kind of falling into without realising. And then they started to send me out on shoots to do drone work. And so I was like, okay, brilliant. So then that kind of had more of a purpose then.
This is a question for me, really. What are the differences between particular drones? Like the FPV, what's the difference between that, say, and one of the other ones on there?
It's just different shot types. With the FPVs, you're going for like really dynamic and epic moves, I'd say. Whereas the Inspires and the Mavics are more kind of
more like
more grand or floaty. You can fly those pretty fast and get some epic views, but you're not going to be diving in between trees and like throwing them down waterfalls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they get different images, there's different outcomes.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. During lockdown, when everyone else was like making banana bread, I was like, I'm going to build a drone. So I built my drone. And then when I came out of that, I was like, okay, I feel more comfortable with flying this now. I'm just going to take it to fields and fly it around and crash it and have to repair it. It's like you have to get very used to crashing.
Kids.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you take it to a field and nowhere near people. It's like,
so it's a bit like a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
A fighter plane.
Yeah. They're very quick.
Really quick and
very
responsive.
dynamic.
And
very responsive.
Are the controllers different?
You could get different controllers. Yeah, mine's quite small. It's like, it looks like a PlayStation controller.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas the Mavic controller or the Inspired controller is huge, chunky thing because you've got a screen built into these. Because with FPV, you've got goggles on.
Right,
So you're seeing exactly what the drone's
So you
seeing.
are a fighter pilot.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that. I'm a fighter pilot. But it makes you feel quite dizzy because, if you're sat there with goggles on, you look ridiculous when you're doing it. But you've got goggles on, you kind of PlayStation control in your hand, and you kind of end up doing this a little bit because you're kind of counteracting like what the drone's doing, which is diving all over the place. So you come out of it feeling a little bit dizzy. Yeah.
So you're fully fledged kind of camera op now, drone pilot. You've worked on some pretty cool shows. Most recently, you worked on
Blue Planet was the one I've just come back from. Yeah, January.
I mean, doesn't get much bigger than that.
Probably not. No, I also did some stuff for Asia and Planet Earth 3. So those are the kind of three big ones. So I think, I kind of pinched myself a little bit that I've managed to get to that point now, working on like one of the planets.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's pretty cool. So at what point do you get brought on? Do you get involved creatively?
A little bit, yeah. Mainly before we go on the shoots, you might have a meeting with a producer and they'll tell you like what the story is and what they want to do. And then we might have a discussion about the type of kit out there to achieve the kind of look that they want, or we'll talk about really cool ideas like shot choices that we could do. Because we're the ones with like the broad kit knowledge, so we know like the lens choice and jibs, drones, whatever. And then you can get quite creative with it, and you can like pitch ideas to them, like, oh, how about we film it in this way? This would look really cool, and kind of portray it this way. So there's a little bit of that. It really depends on the producers. Some producers come to you and have like just the idea, and they kind of want to stick to that. And so there's a little bit of back and forth about like kit choices and whatnot. Whereas some directors will be like, yeah, we want to film this. You can, tell us how you want to do it, or like what's your idea of filming it.
Yeah.
So it really depends on who you're working with, but there is a little bit of like creative control, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
And then when you're out there, you're constantly experimenting. Really, you kind of you've got to get the action and kind of follow this like a rough storyboard of what you need to get, or like a shot list. But the rest of the time, you can be quite creative with it because like when you're filming something that's happening really quickly, so say like tigers hunting. It's very rare you're going to have someone over your shoulder being like, do this, because you're so in the moment. Yeah. You've just kind of got to go off what you have in front of you in the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like a slower sequence or animal behavior, mainly like studio work, the director can talk to you and you can kind of form it together. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is kind of in your hands. Yeah. So you do have quite a lot of creative control, which is nice.
So talk us through like the day before you shoot off to an amazing place in the world. Mm-hmm. What are you going through? What you packing in your bag?
Oh god, yeah, it really depends where we're going.
Yeah, exactly. How are you prepping? What are you thinking about before you kind of head off that night before?
Oh god, thing is, when you're prepping to go on a shoot, it's not all like the night before. You're thinking about it for weeks because we have, in terms of kit, you have meetings running up to the shoot about what kit we want, how we're going to pack it all. Like batteries is an absolute nightmare because, you might take like 5 different cameras and you've got to have maybe like 10, 12 batteries for each. You're traveling with so many batteries. And if you can't fly with that many, so you're kind of stripping down, like, we don't need that. We don't need that. Can these share batteries? So you're having these kind of conversations like weeks in advance. And then you have something called a pack down day or a prep day where you'll go into like the BBC or Offspring, whatever company you're working for, and you'll pack down all the kit. So you'd rig it all first, make sure it actually works. Mm-hmm. And kind of strip down what maybe you don't need, and you'd pack down the kit so it's ready to go, weigh all the cases and like padlock them, whatever. And that takes an entire day, maybe a couple of days. Yeah. So that's like quite a big part of the job. And then once that's done, you're like, okay, brilliant. That can leave my mind until we're out on location. And then personally for me, it really depends where you're going because obviously we're traveling all over the world. So you need like different kit or like different gear, like clothes, like shoes, whatever. And to be honest, that probably takes me about a week to do this as well. I have to do it slowly. Some people pack the night before and I'm not that type of person. So I'm like, I need to really think about what shoes to take and if it gets really cold at night, because you might be filming in like a desert, but it still gets freezing cold at night. So warm layers, all sorts of stuff, sun cream. I mean, production companies are really good now. They have production bags with all sorts of stuff in, whether that's sun cream, bug spray, like different types of medication that you might need, whether it's like seasickness or whatever. Because, if you're going to a really remote place, you might need like certain medications that a doctor needs to sign off on. So you've got all sorts of like trauma kits with you. I'll take my own little miniature first aid kit just in case, like with like plasters and whatnot. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything major. I'd always take coffee because I'm such an addict.
See, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like these absolute
You're trying to,
these
like,
gold
pick that.
nuggets. Yeah, like the macro. Like I take an extra pair of socks, or I take like my own coffee beans.
That's what I do. I wouldn't take the beans, but I take I have like a cafetiere, a metal one, so it doesn't smash. A metal cafetiere, and then some really nice ground coffee. And then if I'm going to a cold place, hot water bottle always. I'll take that. Trying to think if there's any other luxuries that I'd take. Coffee's definitely up there. I've seen some ops as well who have like an actual pelly case with like a grinder, coffee grinder. Like all sorts. I'm like, imagine. Wow. I'm like, when do I get to that point? Just my little cafetiere for now. Which I left in Brazil on my last shoot. I lost my cafetiere, which I'm really sad about.
Time for a new one.
I know, treat myself to a new one. But like having the kind of home luxuries is really nice because when you go on these shoots, you're away for a really long time. So most of the time it's about a month, but I think my longest is about 7 weeks, which is a long time to be away from home. So any sort of home comforts you can take with you, like it sounds small, but it's really beneficial to yourself, really.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you find being away from home difficult or because you're working, it kind of takes your mind off it? Or
it's a bit of a mix, really. It kind of comes in waves because when you first get to location on a shoot, you kind of, I don't know, you're very like pumped with adrenaline. You're in a new place, you're exploring, and like we're going to some incredible places, they're absolutely beautiful. So the first like week or two, it's really fun. You kind of get stuck into the job, whether you kind of building kit and like watching the behavior and meeting people out there because we have people in country that we work with as well. We don't just go to random places. There's usually a fixer out there or a scientist that we're working with. So you're meeting new people, you're doing new stuff. So you are distracted by that. I think as time goes on, it's usually around maybe the third week for me. I'm a bit like, you miss the home comforts or like you miss your friends. But it's not too bad. I've never been super homesick. No. You're just a bit like, okay, you kind of
the adrenaline's worn off.
So you're a bit like, or you're just tired because you're working every single day. So you are absolutely knackered. And then you kind of get like a second wind. So when I did that 7-week shoot, by the 4th week, I was like on a high again because we were like getting the behavior and you get really close with your team because you're like living and working with them constantly. So you have like really good like rapport with them. You can joke around. So it really comes in waves. Yeah. But it depends on how successful the shoot is as well. If you're out somewhere and you're maybe not getting the behavior or the weather's been really shit, so you have to stay inside, morale is quite low. And that's when you're a bit like, I could just be at home kind of thing.
What happens if you don't get the behaviours that you need to kind of tell the story? Do you have to go out again? Or?
It really depends, because this does actually happen quite a lot because, I mean, we like climate change now, you can't always predict when like the behaviour's going to happen or whatever. It really comes down to the producers. They've either got to decide whether to go again and just try and get that behaviour at like a different time of year, or whether just can it all together. They can just can it all together, or sometimes they might hire someone in country, so they might leave a piece of kit out there with a scientist or someone local and be like, if you do see it happen, film it or let us know, and they might be able to get something. But yeah, I mean, these shoots are so expensive. Yeah. So it's like such a gamble anyway, sending a team out to get something. And if it doesn't happen, it's like, do you spend double that to try and get it? I mean, a lot of shoots do extend. Like my last couple of shoots have all extended where like you get some of the behavior, but maybe not all of it. Yeah. So then they'll extend out the end just in case it happens like a week later to try
Yeah.
and get it. And like it's kind of like a known thing during your extension week. You probably will see the behaviour.
You'll get it.
Yeah, you'll get it. But yeah,
Oh,
I mean, it
God.
doesn't always happen.
It must be so tense when you're just sitting there day after day, just hoping that it happens that day. Have the pinch me moments stopped yet? Or is it still, are you still like in this little halcyon moment where you're like, shit, I can't believe this is like, you know, this is exactly where I wanted to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do still have those moments. I think they were more frequent at the start of my career. So like if someone asked me to go on a shoot, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
yeah.
And like grinning the entire way. And you know, when you see like new people come into the industry and they're like full of life and buzzing. And that was definitely me. I was like, this is great.
And then you get to,
yeah, then you get like,
a little bit tired. Yeah.
I still get like that now though. I'm still like thrilled when people ask me to go onto a shoot.
Yeah,
the fact
yeah.
that they even think that I'm like good enough to go onto a shoot.
Yeah.
I'm like always like super honored by that. But then it becomes a bit of like a routine. Like I said, like you get approached for a shoot, you've got to think about the kit and they have all these meetings. Have your pack down day, then you pack your own stuff. And then the airport's the worst part, like traveling with all the kit. And that's the part that's like job. And then when you get to location, then you're like, this is amazing. You're in this like stunning location with like insane wildlife and you meeting local people and like you're in different cultures. That's the part that I really love. And that's when I'm like, this is the best job in the world. This is brilliant.
Do you have any career goals? Are they written down? Do you have them in your head? If so, do you check in with those goals? Do they change?
I like that. Yeah, I do actually. This is a recent thing. So I quite like journaling and like just kind of getting my thoughts in my head just down onto paper. I find helps a lot with like whatever's going on in life. And then more recently, I have been writing down like this year's goals and like how I'm going to get to them and like maybe more baby steps of how to do it. Because sometimes you write down a goal and it's like, it looks like a mountain. You're like, fucking, how am I going to get from here to there? So I'd rather write down like small steps that I can take to get to that point.
Yep.
So I've been doing that recently, like little minor things that I can do over the course of a year to achieve a bigger goal. So yeah, it's weird that you brought that up because I've only just started doing it and I'm like, wow, this is what I've been doing. But yeah, going forward, I mean, for me, FPV is still kind of new. I know I built it during lockdown, but flying it took a long time to learn because you learn in a simulator first. You don't just like build it and go straight out because you will definitely crash.
Kill someone.
Yeah, exactly. So you start in a simulator. So I did that for a long time and it took me a while to kind of get to grips in the simulator before I went outside flying. And now I feel like I'm in a good place for flying that. And I've bought bigger FPVs, more powerful ones that can take heavier cameras. So I just want to get better at FPV this year and go to some more epic locations and really start fine tuning that skill and making some sort of show reel from it. That's my aim for this year. And then in terms, I mean, I kind of want to carry on what I'm doing now. I love filming for natural history, going on these like epic shoots, filming wildlife. So I'd love to continue that. Yeah. And then have FPV at the same time. So that's my goal for this year.
Okay.
Yeah. And then maybe even outside of work, just to kind of do some more traveling and exploring myself.
Yeah. Finally, if that young Abby that picked up the camera all those years ago, if you could talk to that person now, what would you say? And how proud are you of kind of where you've got
mega,
to?
definitely.
Do you think it's important to be proud of yourself?
100%, definitely. Because I think you can get so caught up in the industry and like trying to get to where you want to go. You don't realize the steps that you've made. Like now looking back to when I was working here and I had no idea about the industry or, you know, where to go next. I'm looking back now and I'm like, wow, I've come a long way during that time. And I think it's really nice to reflect on that. And that's part of the journaling as well, like reflecting on how far you've come. Because it is a lot of work and it's like credit to people who climb the ladder and get to where they're going. So yeah, I think I would be super proud of myself. I was talking to my younger self now. I'd be like, it gets really good. It's awesome.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Abby, for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me in. It's been
That's
really
all right.
fun.
Yeah, no, it's really cool to see what you're doing. And I'm certain you'll go from strength to strength and we'll probably see more of your stuff on telly.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Abby.
Yeah, thank you.